Good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's already the last evening at Har, which is really such a pity. But we have a rather prominent show tonight. We have two lockpickers. Barry, the key, is known all over the Netherlands. He's the founder of Tool, the Lockpick Society. He's done really amazing things with the bump key. His colleague Han Fei, they've been working together for years and years. They've done amazing things. Big guys with really industrious fingers. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy.
Okay, welcome to our talk. I unfortunately couldn't see the previous talk by Michael Hübner and his gang. I had great expectations, and I hope that we can, live up to their standard, because I know these guys now, and they really do amazing things. Let's see, if you enjoyed this, if you don't think it's a waste of your 1 hour of your life. So today we'll talk about claiming space. The Locksport community is here to stay. We already have a big foot in the hacker community, but it's not about that, of course. And we will also bring you up to date with some attacks on electronic and electromechanical locks. Let's start with a small introduction. My name is Barry Wells. I've been interested in locks for almost as long as I can remember. I've always been fascinating with opening these, if it's really possible, what you see in the movies. As a kid, I was dreaming of one day I will be able to open any lock I meet. I'm not there yet, but it's getting somewhere. What I like to do now that I'm no longer a kid is that I like to research locks and locking mechanisms. And if I find something interesting to tell the rest of the world about it, at the end of the day, as all the people in this room know, if you publish attack vectors, the bad guys will benefit from it only for a very short time, but afterwards the manufacturers will be forced to change their products. If you don't publish your attacks, they will remain lazy and will not fix it in some cases, and not in all cases. I run a little blackbag.nl weblog that is more or less a mixture between a place where I share my research and the gossip corner of the lock industry or the lock sport community, or however you want to call the group that we now belong to. And that's more or less an introduction of me. Then I will go to Han.
Okay, my name is Han Fei. I am a member of the board of Tool, and I'm a lock collector. Lock collector is a very great word. It means that I collect locks, and I think I have about 3,000 different locks and about 500-600 different cylinders. The point about that collection is, if it's still a collection, because Barry and I use a lot of these locks for investigations. If we investigate a lock, it's necessary that you have the lock in your hands in steel, so that you really can play with it, so that you don't have a video or pictures of it, but that you really can test on the lock. And therefore I have so many locks. And if we do testing, we do it very thoroughly, so very precise. We don't open one lock and say, okay, it will work on all the locks. We open at least 3, 4, 5 locks we have, and then we give a conclusion. If anybody wants to know something about the lock in detail, they can always ask or inform me. I know from most locks exactly which pins are in it, which color of pins, which color of springs or whatever, and I can say mostly the remarks of the security features of that specific lock. Barry.
Now, then there is an organization called Tool, and I hope by all you now more or less know the logo. Tool is the open organization of lockpickers, and we started this group in 2002. in the Netherlands. And there used to be a group before that called the Nederlandse Vereniging van Hang- en Sluitwerk, which is more or less the lock, door and hardware sport group. At one moment that didn't go well, and the bubble bursted, and the remaining people set up Tool. And since 2002, I feel like, okay, this is it. This is how it should be. Now, the main goal that I personally had with Tool when we started this is to expand my knowledge, teach other people, but also learn from other people. Because even if you give the most basic training, the most basic course like we do now in the Lockpick Village, even in that most basic course, people who you teach lockpicking and about locks, they will teach you something too, That's basically it. So it was set up to learn, to have fun, to expand the knowledge, yet very clearly for me from the beginning that this is a serious matter. Fun doesn't mean that we just do something and don't think about it. No, we try to be professional and serious, especially with a topic like this. We do report exploits, we do talk about that, but we are also looking a little bit on not to teach bad guys in Tool and to keep the organization free of criminal elements and crazy people. And so far it looks as if we've done well, but you never know. Now,
I will say something about travel a lot while learning and having fun. It's almost the fact that Barry and I travel a lot. I think 2 weeks ago we were in America at DEF CON. I think 2 months ago we were in Poland, in Warsaw, at the LF convention. And the advantage of visiting all these events is that you meet people, and all you can learn from every person is our thought. But most important at DEF CON or the LF convention are lock enthusiasts or locksmiths or whatever, and we learn from them specific tricks about locks.
And sharing experiences.
Sharing experiences, yes.
Okay, and what happened that we were at the trade show for locks in the US, the Aloha convention, and there we met this gentleman that said, I would like to set up a Tool US, an organization like yourself, but in the US. And we spoke with him for a long time, and he was a really nice guy. And we said, okay, you can try it for 1 year. If you get somewhere in 1 year, then you can call yourself Tool US. And they did really great. I mean, they're now even flying more over the world than we do. And the presentations by Babak and Deviant, as they are called, are really, very, very good. As I think most of you already have seen it in the Lockpick Village. Every even hour, they do a 1 hour basic introduction to lockpicking, which is really well received. And these guys really do well. So I also think that with the traveling we do and with the contacts we make, there will be more tools than only US and NL. But we're not actively looking for it. But in the meanwhile, what I had in mind in 2002 has exceeded where we are now has exceeded my most wildest memory expectations, because where we are now is pretty amazing as far as what I think. No. We now have something called LockCon, and LockCon is an event that we started 1 year ago, and LockCon grew from the first Dutch Open Lockpick Championships in 2002. We have a German sister organization. No, it's not a sister organization, it's a separate organization. Yeah, sorry, no laughing, Julian. Anyway, now there is the first lock sport organization, SSDEF, the Sportfreunde der Sperrtechnik, and they were the first clever people to come up with this brilliant idea to set up a sport group, and they had their championships, and they had their weekends where they share experiences, and that's basically more or less what we also did. And so in 2002, we held our first championships, and it included some presentations, and actually I was quite pleased with both. Both the games and the presentations went really well. And it got bigger and bigger. Every year that we did one of these Dutch Opens, the level grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is mostly because Han and I travel so much and we meet all these people from abroad. They all come to give presentations, to meet the other people. And yeah, Lockon really, and the Dutch Open really are names in the industry. And as a result, because of all these international people come to the event, the Lockpick Championships we host at these events are the most international ones with most audience from all over the world. What you see here is a gentleman named Peter Field. He's head of research of Medeco, which is one of the biggest US lock manufacturers. And, you know, when this gentleman comes somewhere, people always listen. He is really like about the most clever people on locks that you can imagine. And now for 2 years in a row, he has been at LockOn giving presentations for 5 hours in a row, 5 straight hours, going into details of locks that that some people haven't heard of before. And the applause that he's getting normally is about 10 minutes straight, you know. The people stop applauding when their hands really hurt too much to clap on it. And we're so pleased to have this gentleman here because it means a lot. That it means that the industry, at least that's how I feel it, they respect us. Well, we also try to do high quality workshops ourselves. For instance, this is Paul Krauwel doing safe opening, safe manipulation lessons. And as a result, people now open safe combination locks. And at this second edition of LockOn, which is taking place at HAR, at this event, we now even have the championships in safe manipulation. So if you come by at the Lockpick Village or maybe at the Paasheuvelzaal, which is the concrete building at the beginning, at the main entrance, you can maybe see something about that.
Okay, so
Oh?
wait. One short remark. Within LockOn, we have 3 kinds of competitions. We have the lockpicking competitions. So the person who opens the fastest with a pick tool a cylinder. That's competition number 1. The second competition we have impressioning. That means that with the blank we try to make a key and we try to open the lock that way. So that's the second championship we have. And the third championship, what Barry is referring to, is the safe dial manipulation. So you have a safe dial, you have a safe lock. It's mounted on a plastic stand. Somebody has put a combination in it, and within 1 hour somebody must find the right combination. So for every championship we have a first, second and third place. And maybe you can tell something about the first place?
Yes. That will be in 2 slides from now. What I want you to tell is that at 10:30 tomorrow morning at the main entrance in the Paasheuvelzaal, so you just go to the main entrance where you got your band, and then there's a building, and at 10:30 we'll have the impressioning championship, and you will see people filing a key to a lock where they don't know the combination, they don't know what the key looks like, and they'll open it in under 5 minutes. They'll make a working key in under 5 minutes. It's really spectacular to see. So, you know, if you want to have a good time. But anyway, so back to LockOn. We have these high quality presentations and workshops where people can learn but also practice new skills. And where this is going to is something we found very, very exciting, ELF. ELF is the European Locksmith Federation. And yeah, from the beginning, you know, these locksmiths were not all too happy with us. But it's starting to change. You know, people see that we're not the bad guys and that they can actually learn. 1.5 months ago, Han and I went to Spain to teach a course of impressioning, this technique where you make a key to a lock, to Spanish locksmiths, and we did bumping courses for locksmiths. And the locksmith community is starting to understand that we're not the bad guys and that they can actually learn something from us sometimes. But what happened is that we were in Poland at the ELF convention 2009, and we were approached by the Turkish president of ELF. The Turkish have now just entered, as of this year, the ELF. And they asked us if we could organize the European Lockpick Championships with all the contacts that we have, all the international contacts. Now, we had to think about that because, you know, there's a risk of being compromised, there's the risk of being, you know, put in a position where at one moment you cannot say no, you know, what are we doing with this? And the championships are a part of LockCon. That's also why this presentation you're looking now at is actually something we would also do at LockCon, especially about the electronic locks. I mean, they all know, of course, this introduction. So we had to think about it, and we came to the conclusion that we could only do it if we couple LockCon and the championships together. So it's one event. And we will organize in 2010 the LockCon conference in Istanbul in Turkey. And the tickets are going to be partly sponsored by ELF, that we can all fly there. All the hobbyists that ever visited LockCon, they will get some money. And it's even that the people who win at the championships now in the Netherlands and in Germany, they will get a fully sponsored airplane ticket, hotel, entrance fee, everything is arranged. And it's a very great deal, and we're very excited to see if it's actually going to happen. I mean, you never know. It could be that some people say, this is not going to happen. It could be, but for the moment it looks very good. And yeah, if this doesn't happen, you know, we'll really make fool of ourselves, but I'll try it anyway. So these are the risks we keep in mind, you know. Independency is all we have. If we're not independent, you know, we might as well stop, because then you become somebody's sock puppet and you just say what somebody who gives you some money tells you. That should be avoided at all times. That's very important for us. It can also create envy, you know, people can get jealous, oh, they have success. These are all things that can really cause very ugly things to happen. So the thing that Han and I said is that we must make sure that this deal benefits the Locksport community as a whole. You know, so we did not only sponsor the Tool NL event and the SSDEF German event, we also went to DEF CON in the US and made sure that the person who won there, the US Lockpick Championships, also got a much more expensive airline ticket and hotel cost and entrance fee sponsored by ELF. So we're really trying to make this whole community one community. You want to say something? No? Now, the most important thing is also that we really want to remain open and transparent in what we do, and you know, no secrets. That's what the O for open organization stands for. Now, the lock industry. As some of you might know, 4 years ago I did here a demonstration about bumping locks. It was a little bit more spectacular than this presentation, so I hope you're not too bored by it so far. But thanks to all this information about bumping and writing about it and doing tests for consumer reports, etc., etc., they all know us. And the good thing is we're even talking with almost all of them. You know, we know at the board level more or less, or we have our ways in almost any lock manufacturing company. One other thing that we find very important is our golden rule, that if we find a serious exploit, we will inform the manufacturer and give them time to fix it before going public. This is more or less the mission statement that Han and I have. There's a lot of debate about this, and one of the last slides we'll get there. Now, it's a long story, you know, when do you go public, when don't you go public, what is a serious exploit, what is new, what is old, what should they have known. So there's many variables, but in short, this is what we do. So far, this philosophy has paid off. You know, we have found quite some exploits, and the lock manufacturers that this concerns to, yeah, they seem to appreciate it. And there seems to be some mutual respect from us to the lock industry and vice versa. Now, one of the examples that I can give you is the Salto attack. Now, before I go on, I tell you that the Salto attack, we did not discover this attack. We visited the German Locksport meeting, And there was somebody demonstrating an attack vector on this purely electronic lock, which of course still has a mechanical locking mechanism, but the lock is controlled purely electronically. With an electronic key, you can open it. Now, the interesting thing is that Han and I had a meeting with EVA, the daughter company that sells these locks. And, you know, we speak with them and we say, listen, you know, we have a presentation coming up in 2 months. And, you know, we want to talk about this salto attack. And they look at us and say, salto attack? What do you mean? And they did not know. They were unaware of this attack. And I said, oh, you did not know? No. And they started calling to Salto, and there was some rumor, but nobody could verify it. And yeah, so they were the first to hear from us. And I mean, that it was not told to me that it was a secret or anything. So, yeah.
Wait. Concerning the Salto attack, so indeed, we had an attack with a hammer, how we could...
You will show it.
Okay.
After the video.
Okay, yes, show. After the video, I will tell something.
Now, it's a serious mechanical vulnerability, and what's most bothering for the lock industry or for this specific vendor is that the attack does not show up in the log files. The most important property of an electronic or electromechanical lock is the log files, to see who went in when, who was the last one that opened the door, and you know, if something is stolen, he will be the one that, or he or she will be the one that has to explain something. Now, we shot some video here. I hope you can hear the audio. Dallas I button. And we are going to demonstrate now a technique to open these locks that was only possible before August 2005. That's when they fixed the flaw in all the locks that they knew where they were placed. And the attack is sort of a vibration attack. Namely, if you put some tension on the handle, and then you hit the handle with a rubber or a nylon hammer a couple of times. Then the lock is open. So there's no log file when you open it. It's not registered who opened this lock. There is not really a lot of physical evidence that you did it. If you do it with the rubber hammer, you know, it's a few blows, and it does make some sound, but at the end of the day, you know, this was a serious.
What you saw in the video was that the day bolt, or the bolt which moves normally, retracted. Did everybody see it? Yeah, okay, and because that bolt retracted, the door was open.
Now, Salto responded pretty quickly and was explaining us what happened. We more or less also knew, but they explained us what happened. And there was one part in the lock that normally comes up, and maybe you can explain it a little bit better, how the locking mechanism worked and what the flaw was.
Okay, the flaw, now I can tell in detail exactly what it was, but the point was that the first versions of these Salto locks were perfect and they worked good. And then suddenly they found a new supplier of a certain part, which was cheaper. And they said, okay, the next time we take that supplier because that supplier is cheaper. And they modified all the locks and they put that cheap part in it. And because of the cheap part, the lock could be bumped open, as we call it.
Now, okay. We have here, the Salto lock we have here has a hole in it, so it's actually a cutaway version. If you come to the Lockpick Village later, we can actually show you what happens. There is a little part that goes over the handle, and if that part goes over, the handle can no longer turn. However, this part is not straight. It's bent a little bit like a V. It should be a U, but it's a little bit a V. And what happens is if you put tension on the handle and you hammer, because it's a V, it goes more down, and it cannot slide back up. So after a few blows, the V is completely down and the lock opens. And yeah, for them it was relatively simple to fix it with a U-shaped piece of metal. And they asked us, they said, you know, please give us some time. And I said, well, it's not my hack. But, you know, if you say that 2 months is not enough, then we will gladly wait. And yeah, that's what happened. The interesting thing is, yeah?
One thing, so we made a notice to EFA Salto that they had a problem. And 3 days later, I had a new design in my house and they say, please test this one. So within 3 days, they solved mechanically the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in 7 months, every lock where they knew it was, they replaced that part. They sent over somebody in a van to service the lock, not telling everybody and just changing that part. We had some reference customers that we did not tell Salto that we knew them. And indeed, after they said we fixed everything, it no longer worked. However, if you have these locks and you can open them that way, I would like to know if they didn't tell the truth. But for what I see now, they did tell the truth. Now, these Salto locks are, the ones that are using the I button are not high on my security ladder anyway when it comes to key control. The I button, as most of you know probably, is just something that spits out a serial number. And the lock just looks, okay, is the serial number allowed or not? Although people still think it's an electronic lock, so they value it greatly. But it's not real special, as you can hopefully see in this video. Here is a Dallas I button lock. The Dallas I button is an electronic key that just spits out a serial number. For instance, if we have the yellow key is not programmed into our lock. If we insert it onto the reader, it will say beep, 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 meaning I remain closed. The black key, however, is a correct key for this lock. And if we insert it, we can open the lock. Now, what we have here is a Dallas I button for the simple models, for the normal models, a cloning device. It's now programmed to the last key it read. And if we now hook up this reader, if we hook up the key to the lock, it's not going to open. And to operate this thing, we first need to short the 2 poles. Make a shortcut, make a mechanical shortcut. And then the lock wakes up. You hear, the code is not correct. But now we will read our black key. So we're now going to copy the black one. So we push the button. Now the key is red. The key is red. And if we now hook up, now the lock will open. And the lock file will register that the black key has opened this lock. So whoever is the owner of the black key is now in the log files of the system as he opened this device. So on the simple models, the log files are not always as reliable as you might think at first. Now, and that in itself is a risk, because people think, it's an electronic lock. I can give out the key to somebody. They can relatively easy duplicate it, read it out. The serial number is even stamped on the key itself. Yes? Yeah, okay. And it's not high security. Now, I know this is not really something new. What we also have is that you can actually scan the locks. What we found is that if you buy a lock and you order the keys from the same manufacturer, that they have in their warehouse, they may have 1,000 or 10,000 keys laying around. And these are programmed in a sequential batch. So there are 10,000 numbers that are followed up after each other, meaning that I have one of their keys. I can more or less predict what key space the users in the field will have, which is a silly attack. If you have this lock, you should get your locks, your keys from Sweden or from some other place, or order them online. But whatever you do, don't order them with all at the same manufacturer, because these keys are grouped. And this is actually an example of
we have a demonstration of the Dallas I button scanner. As we all know, does every key have a specific number? I'm looking for it. Does every key have a specific number? And if you know in which range a specific number is, you can put that range into a computer or a laptop, And then with the laptop, you can write a program so that he scans automatically all these numbers. So if the range is, for example, between 0 and 1000, a signal will be created by the laptop, and one by one all these combinations will be dialed till the lock finally goes open. That will be demonstrated now. The lock must be activated.
First you short it.
You hear peep, peep, peep. And every peep is an incorrect combination or an incorrect key. So he is trying and trying, and if it stops, you have the correct number. So I counted that approximately every combination is 1 second. So within 1 hour you have 3,600 combinations.
Now, even though we thought we had relatively good contacts with Salto, we said, you know, we want to build a scanner and cloning device and test it. Can you send us an extra lock? And they sent us a model that works with SHA I buttons that, you know, are not only a serial number but actually do a challenge response. So, and that lock is not in the catalog. We later learned it does exist for government and you know, special companies. But if you are Joe Blow, you will get this lock with a simple I button key, which still is a relatively good lock, if you ask me. And especially if you take into account the way Salto solves the problems, you know, but just fixing them. And I really like that approach, and I can appreciate that. Sorry? Yes, compare that with software vendors. Now, unfortunately, not everybody has the same philosophy as we did. And here we see Ullman and Sacher. It's a company that actually I didn't hear of before this whole magnetic ring attack. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, there is a video where somebody demonstrates that if you have this purely electronic lock, which works with challenge response cards, they found a way to bypass it by using this magnetic ring, twisting it around the knob. One way will open the lock, and the other way it will close the lock. Even though I greatly admire this trick, I thought it was really, you know, very low and a dagger in the back of this Ullman and Sacher guys. I mean, why put this online without notifying them and just boom? It even got more dirty as after this video, after this video, even more disturbing videos came up. Let me see, this one. It's like somebody really had a score to settle with these people. The Ullman and Sacher people really were trying to fix the problem, and I don't know what happened, but you know, somebody, I don't know. So we of course were interested in the technical details of this attack. Oh, I hear we have 15 minutes. Ooh, I'm going to hurry. We were interested in the technical details of this attack. We thought in first that turning the magnetic ring that had magnets in it was creating some current in a coil. Just as with a dynamo, if you spin magnetic field around the coil, energy is being generated. And we thought that was actually driving the motor, but this was not the case. It was turning a measurement wheel. In the lock, there is this magnetic sensor / counter. And, okay, Han?
Okay, I will tell in short some how the trick works. This is an X, and this is a metallic part, and a magnet part, and this magnet part rotates if you serve the lock with an ordinary key. What the magnetic ring was, if you rotate the ring around this X, this magnet was grabbed and the X also started rotating.
Why is the magnet there?
The magnet is here because there is here a counter, and this thing counts how many times the X rotates. So if the X rotates 5 times, the lock says, hey, I'm open. And to get closed, he has to rotate 5 times that time, and if he counts 5, it stops because the lock is closed. So the magnetic ring grabbed this magnetic part, and it rotated, and then the lock went open. So Ullman and Sacher thought we built in a counter. So the counter counted normally till 5, but if you come with a magnetic ring, you rotate it more than 5 times, and if you rotate this thing more than 5 times, the lock gets on tilt. It stops. It blocks. Because the lock thinks I am being manipulated. So that was the improvement of Ullman and Sacher. So if you came with a magnetic ring and rotated more than 10 times, the lock blocked automatically.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Then there was a new trick which came by the lock pickers. They came with a paralyzer. They put a big paralyzer on the lock, and then the whole circuit, the whole electronics burned. So the counter didn't work anymore. And then you came with your magnetic ring, and still the lock went open. So the improvement of Ullman and Sacher, the second improvement didn't work. So Ullman and Sacher said, okay, then we have to make a new improvement, and the new improvement is good, because they put a light sensor here, and they make the X of plastic, and they put a black dot or a black thing on it, and that black dot counted now the rotations. And this plastic part cannot be touched or manipulated by a magnet.
So they made a light sensor instead of a magnetic field sensor. That's what they did.
Okay, that was the solution of Ullman and Sacher.
Now, we have to go on. We'll hope to answer questions later. Now, Ullman and Sacher never saw this coming, and they showed great spirit in fixing the problem in a record time. You know, these people really, all of a sudden, they were being called up when they were asleep, and they were in their bed, and somebody said, there's a video online, and from that moment on, you know, this guy's life went to some sort of hell freak show. He had no clue what he was getting into. And, you know, they fixed the problems, and they came up with clever fixes, not so clever fixes, but at the end of the day, they exchanged the locks, and yeah, they had no choice. I mean, every customer knew about it, so that is a way of, if you publish attacks. And Mark Sacher showed great spirit also to come to LockCon and talk about it in technical details, how his lock worked, what he thought was the solution. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, they're a good company, and they showed that they really, you know, take security seriously. Now, this magnetic ring, of course, we found it very interesting. It was for sale 2 days after this video went online. And we found out that other locks also could be opened with it as well, like the multi-lock click. And this is what we found out.
This is a first generation multi-lock click. It's a key with a chip and a mechanical multi-lock interactive. As you can see, with the correct key, the green LED is flashing and the lock operates. Now we take a key with the correct mechanical properties, but with the wrong transponder, and the lock remains closed. And we even have a key that doesn't have a battery, so normally it will never allow the electromechanical lock to open. What we'll do now is we'll manipulate the electronic part of the lock with the devil's ring.
They named it the devil's ring.
And as you can see now, with the incorrect green key, the LED will flash red, but it will operate the lock. And even if you try it with the key with no battery at all, the lock still operates fine.
Now, multi-lock, we have a certain relationship with them, and that is when this whole bumping thing came, they said our locks cannot be bumped, they cannot be picked, they are pick-proof, they're bump-proof, and anybody who says otherwise, you know. Anyway, yeah. So this multi-lock click, it's a high-end, high-security electromechanical lock. And again, the lock file is one of the selling features, one of the most important features. They just want to know who is in there. So even though we didn't have the best relationship with multi-lock, to say it mildly, we said, we stick to the plan, professional, responsible. We will contact Multilock before doing anything else. Now, communications went very slow. They only wanted to test the locks and talk about locks in details when we went to the factory in Israel. They invited us. They said, we'll pay your expenses. I said, well, we'll pay some of our tickets. You can pay part of it. I don't want to be compromised too much. So we kept some distance. But at the end of the day, we thought, you know what? Why should we go to Israel? We tell them they have a problem. They should come here. Why do I need to go there? So we asked, send us some samples. Send us some other locks, because these locks are a couple of €100 each. Very expensive, very hard to get. Send us some locks and we can do more tests. Yeah, well, it's not our policy. Come to Israel. And they also said, we cannot replicate what you're doing. We also ordered this magnetic ring and it doesn't work. So months later, communication was almost dead and we had our lock-on. So we held a closed session with some people we know and we trust. And we explained them a little bit what happened and where we were. That's the kind of thing that happens at these lock-ons. And they did their own research. They said, okay, from now on, 6 months, we're not going to talk about it with anybody else, but thanks for the information. We'll think about it ourselves further. And they just 2 weeks ago did a presentation at DEF CON, and they're walking around in circles at the whole Click family. They bypassed it in many levels. Okay, but we also had to do our homework. So we were looking, okay, what's happening with this lock? Why does it open with the devil's ring? Now, we already knew that there was a motor in that lock. So we were thinking that the magnetic field was picking up the axis of this motor, of this electromotor, and thereby clearing it. Now, this is the core of the lock. So here normally the key enters. And here is the blocking element. It's actually an element that sticks out. And this blocking element, it's this part, it's magnified, falls into this gate, into this hole, into the lock. So this is the part. Here you can see that they stamped it in, they milled a hole and they put in this gate. And if the lock is free, this element, which is this part, this is the underlying electromotor. If you remove this part, you see an X. And if this part is up, this element cannot go in and the lock will remain closed. If this side is up, it can sink a little bit deeper and the lock is open. So we thought, by creating this magnetic field, we're probably picking up the motor, but that seemed not to be the case. Here we have this electromotor, so we removed this part with the flat side and with the round side, and here you can see the electric motor is here, and here's the axis that controls this blocking part. Also in the research that we conducted, we found that there were multiple versions. So it's not only that they had one model, but without that you could see it on the outside. We found things with version 2, and if you compare these two blocking elements, they clearly changed the design sometimes. Something also that Multilock told us that there are some versions out there. But it's not the magnetism that opens the lock.
Click keys. One has battery in it and is programmed to the lock. One has no battery in it, and normally it could not open or operate the lock. We will first open the lock with the blue key, that is a programmed key, into this lock. And if we insert it, we will see a green light blinking.
So this is the proper key.
Okay, now it's authorized. And the bolt will actually turn. Do it again, if you want. Turn it. Just open the lock. And now close it again. Now, the green key doesn't have a battery. And if you insert the green key now into the lock, mechanically it's the correct key. Although, since it doesn't have a battery, it cannot open the lock. The click technology is in this specific model. The battery is in the key only. There is no battery in the lock. So if we now insert the green key into the lock, you will see that it doesn't want to open. There's no blinking light.
normally if the key is not programmed in right, it's a red key. You can see there's already quite some play in the lock. And the only thing blocking this lock now is the little rotor that I will show a picture of now. And
I didn't have
the
time
trick
to
is,
put it
how
in.
can we make this rotor move? Now we do that by vibrating that rotor. And what we have here is a little Dremel tool with a piece of nylon on it that's asymmetric, so it will make a wobbly movement. And we're going to create vibrations by keeping that thing to the key. And go ahead, by keeping this to the key and try to get the right vibration.
Now this is take one, so we just filmed it, and this is how long it took. You can see the key actually dance in the lock. And open.
Now this was the first shot we made today on this video, so it's the first try.
Now it
This is how
remains
long it took.
open. So even
We
if
could
you remove
optimize
the
it,
key
but I think,
and insert
for
it
a
later
video
again,
it's,
it remains in the open position because the element is rotated. So what we found out that happened is that by inserting a vibration into the lock, if you find the right resonance frequency for this little part in the motor, it starts to wiggle left and right until it's in the open position, and then yeah, it remains open. So Multilock, after quite some persuasion, sent us some samples, and after that it went really silence again. So yeah, there's not much to say about the new locks that they sent. At first we couldn't open them. We now think we have some attack vectors. But the bottom line is that Mark Tobias and Tobias Blusmanis bought a couple of these locks that supposedly were 6 weeks old, and they can still bypass them, open them, manipulate them. Yeah, I'm not sure. What we have seen from these people is that they have bought, they tried to buy, they tried to get the whole range in the Click series, and so far I think that they can either open or bypass or manipulate all these locks into doing things that they're not made for, and that circumvents the lock files in some of these Click factories, Click families. However, there's a different approach between these two American researchers and us, and they say we will only tell the lock manufacturers what the problem is if you replace all the locks at your cost to the customers. Now, which in itself is, a great thing to say, but if you don't say what exactly the problem is, how is the lock manufacturer going to say, okay, I'll do that? He has no clue what it is. So it's a dilemma. And yeah, this is their approach, and they're saying, so they gave this DEF CON presentation, and they were not saying how they exactly were doing it. They were keeping that in the dark. And we give you the details in the research where we are now. Multilock knows this, that this is coming. And yeah, instead of, we give you 6 months or however long it takes you to open it within reasonable boundaries, of course. But what we see happening is that there's a lot of security through obscurity now getting into this lock field. We all know, security through obscurity, in the long term it doesn't work. It gives a false sense of security. The arm race is getting pretty dirty. It used to be, I find an exploit, I publish, you fix it, I try to find another exploit. And now what we see is we are meeting this lock company at the ELF convention. And we say, we heard you made some improvements in the lock. Yes, we did. What did you change? Yeah, I'm not saying because before you know it, there will be a publication. I said, well, I can buy the locks. Well, then, buy the locks, and we'll even send you some locks, but we are not going to tell you exactly what you did, what we did. And yeah, now these researchers seem to be more or less following the same strategy. Yeah, we can open your locks, and we will only tell you if you come up to our demands. And I don't think that this field is getting any better by both the lock manufacturers and with the other approach. I can understand all these things. I mean, you know, if you keep it all secret, it takes a little bit longer to find out. On the other hand, it's implemented then in more locks. So really this open source lock from Michael Hübner and the gang, I really am in big favor of that. And I really hope that it will get somewhere, and actually I'm convinced it will get somewhere. We will not go in the route of, you know, saying that we can open something but not show it, if we can avoid it. You never know it, but we'll try the best we can to do the right thing. Yeah, this is then the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Are there questions?
I'm sure there are questions. Can I? Yes, there's one.
Hello, thanks, and great presentation.
Thank you.
So, as I got from it, some of the better locks come with a sort of warranty against future exploits. So the manufacturer will include in the price, or how does the economic model works? How is this warranty against exploits included? For how long time they will replace the locks?
The model seems to be now, sorry, we have a defect in the lock, buy a new one. That seems to be the philosophy now. Sorry, the lock is broken, you know, buy a new one.
Okay, so nobody actually wants to do recalls, exchanges.
Well, we've seen with Salto and Ullman and Zucker, you know, they did the right thing by fixing the problems and going out in the field, but not everybody is doing that. Some manufacturers are saying, you know, we don't care, just buy a new model. It's not a subscription.
But there's no official warranty included. They did it voluntarily, out of free will, say.
I did not forget that last part, but we can talk about it after the presentation.
Other people? Other questions? I'm quite sure that people have questions, remarks.
Okay.
No?
No.
Yes,
Oh.
there's somebody.
Did you actually find out why the lock that you opened with vibration also opened with the what's called the devil's ring?
Yes, because the rotations of the lock, of the ring, it created the right vibrations that you got into this resonance frequency of the part. So it's because of all this, you know, the ring is spinning around, making contact with the core, with the body of that lock. And because it was vibrating, that's what happened. At least that's what we think. But it's most likely that this is the case.
What kind of lock do you have on your front door?
I have a Salto on my front door.
Okay. The good one? With the hashes?
This one, not with the hashes. It's better than your conventional lock.
Okay, yeah, I've got multi-lock on my front door, so.
Well.
Any more questions? No? Thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you.
And all of you, sleep well and see you again tomorrow for the last hard day.